to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Roll call, please.
All right. Councillor Moore.
Here.
Councillor Robichaud.
Here.
Councillor Larochelle.
Here.
Councillor Lunt.
Here.
Councillor Fellows.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Here.
Councillor Kane.
Here.
First item, whenever you're ready.
First item is good news and recognition. We have the June Blues Festival update from Ross Cunningham from the Economic and Community Development Office.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Again, Ross Cunningham with the Economic Community Development Office. As many of you know, on June 18th, the Maine Blues Festival held their first blues festival here in Lisbon. I wanted to take a minute to sort of review that festival, review the process, see how it worked out for us and what the results turned out to be for not only the Blues Festival folks, but for our local businesses. For those who are not familiar, it was a very unique festival with performances at multiple locations simultaneously. There were performances at Frank's, Flux, Olive Garden, and then the main stage down on Warumba with some evening performances at the Railroad.
Oh, yeah, we'll let it slide there.
Sorry.
Olive Garden.
I said Olive Garden? Sorry.
He's hungry.
The unique thing was that you had to have a Blues Festival ticket to get into our local restaurants that day that they were housing music. And that required a real leap of faith from local business owners. And again, there they are again, Olive Pitt. Excuse me. Just to be clear. The music ran that evening, that day, from 12:30 in the afternoon to midnight. And this is what that looked like on the different stages, for those of you who can see it. It's a pretty solid lineup. There were 25 bands, I believe, on different stages at different times. The planning started in early March with the Blues Festival team. Apparently usually meets in October, November to start their planning for the following year. Because they were transitioning from Naples to here, they hadn't really picked a location until late February, and they met with the town officials and community groups in early March. That included the town manager, Public Works, Parks and Rec, the fire department, of course the police department as well, and Positive Change Lisbon. They spoke with the local businesses to get some buy-in and make sure everybody was on board. During the planning phase, the Recreation Department, Public Works, my office, and the police and fire all coordinated to ensure we were providing the safest and best environment for the festival. And their goal was 2,000 tickets. Apparently they usually have between 4,000 and 5,000 in Naples. After 14 years, that's what it grew to. They were hoping if they got 2,000 here, it would be a great first year, a good start. So let's talk results. 2,200 tickets. So they were thrilled with the way that turned out. And that's really important. And what I did was I went on social media and I just pulled some comments that I was able to see from folks who were posting to different pages. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but there's a constant trend that said this was a great weekend. Lots of enjoyable music, great acts, even a shout out to Flux for a great dinner. And this last one said the whole thing seemed to be a smashing success at its new home in Lisbon, one of my favorite towns in Maine, by the way. So overall, we could see from the folks posting on social media that it was a really great day. Very few, if any, negative comments anywhere on social media about the way the day went. And I think for us, that's huge. Here's some photos. That was the main stage. Another angle of it. And from the main stage looking out, you could see the beer garden. And it was heavily populated all day. Olive Pitt had a backyard beer garden that was very well attended. And you can even see in the distance that you could walk from the Olive Pitt Beer Garden to the Frank's Beer Garden, which worked out real well as well. I'm sorry, I went too fast for you there. Sorry about that. And again, it was constant people all day. It felt very, very active. Inside the two major restaurants, both Frank's and Flux, there were waits for seating most of the day. I think Olive Pitt had most of their stuff outside, but some pretty solid seating inside as well. So let's talk about the revenues. There's no question that the concert attendees enjoyed the day, but how did our businesses do? Flux, and I'll read these for the folks who are watching online. The Blues Festival was our highest sales day to date. It was twice the sales that any other day or any other festival has brought in for us. Really enjoyed the people and the live music and hope to do more events like this in the future. Frank's, over 2.5 times our regular Saturday, a great day. Olive Pitt, our sales for the day were 3.25 times our highest prior sales record. Costs were higher than usual because the venue split the cost of the bands, but the profits were still substantial, and with softer sales because of the Main Street project and tighter economy, this event put us in the black for the month. And the railroad, the sales were great, well above the other festivals or any other events we've held in the past. And if you're familiar with the railroad, they've had some major fundraisers down there that have raised an awful lot of money and seen an awful lot of people. So this clearly was well above anything they've seen. Let's talk a bit about the groups that were not involved in the actual event, but open that day. Juliet's Resale down here, this end of town, was up 30% from previous Saturdays by putting a sign on the corner that said, "Blues fans, shop here." And she said it was incredible. People stopped left and right coming from the Lewiston area. Lisbon Cannabis was up 15% from an average Saturday. Rusty Lantern, interestingly, were up on food sales but down a bit on gas sales. And I think that I attribute that to local folks not going to get gas that day because they knew there was a lot going down in the area. Lisbon House of Pizza, average sales, but they said they didn't recognize anybody. It was all new customers. So their regulars did not come in, but they had the same sales they always have on a Saturday, and it was everybody new, which for me is fantastic. And Eastcraft up 66% over the same Saturday the year before. So it's obvious that when you have an event like this, not just the businesses that are part of this succeed and do well. So that's great. So in summary, the festival was very well run. There were no police or fire events based on the festival that I know of. And you can correct me if I'm wrong there, Chief, but I don't think there were any calls at all that night.
Good. Well, there's plenty of calls, but not to the festival.
Fair enough. Not from the festival. Feedback from the attendees, as we mentioned, was really nice. Participating businesses were successful well beyond expectations. Regional businesses were positively impacted. Businesses have a model that works well. Now, I want to mention this real quick because if you notice, this past weekend was the Moxie Festival. It was extremely successful. I think it went well all over the map. But what I did notice was that it wasn't on Main Street. So Main Street businesses had the opportunity, much like the Blues Festival, to have their own activities. And if you were down at Sausage Kitchen, there was a line about 100 people long waiting to get at sausages. And at Frank's, they had live music in the parking lot in the afternoon. And at the railroad, they had live music in the afternoon. And all of those events were widely attended, and it doesn't look like it took away from the MTM stuff at all. So it's sort of a new model for us to look at. Traditionally, when we did the Moxie Festival, it was all Moxie and that's it. But this looks like the Blues Festival sort of blended into this new model where we can have multiple things going on in multiple places at the same time, and it worked out really well. The most important summary, though, 2,200 festival attendees, 20 bands, 2 food trucks, and multiple vendors were all introduced to Lisbon and walked away with a positive impression of our town. We could not have done this better. My thanks to the Blues Festival, certainly, and my thanks to the folks who helped with the police department, public works, rec department, all those folks. So that's really overall, and I want to just throw in Councillor Ray gives it a 2 thumbs up from the event because he was behind that grill for, 10 hours that day, sir?
8.5 hours.
8.5 hours, slinging dogs and things. So before I invite Kevin Kimball up here, Ray, if you'd join us over here. Mr. Kimball, come on up. We're going to let you have a few comments to the board, but first we'd like to present you with something. Just a little howdy-do, if I can get a photo for the two of you. Just a little thank you for choosing Lisbon. Excellent, thank you. It's just a little,
Thank you. Wow.
if you would.
That,
Yeah, you get the floor, sir.
speechless.
Yeah, I know. NAW speechless.
Right. Wow. That, I didn't see that coming. Okay, I would like to reiterate thanks to the town. We were pretty much bowled over by the positive response, and not only that, but the active participation and help from the community and from town government. That's something that we have not experienced for a while, and I'll just let it go at that. But that was wonderful. It was we were flabbergasted. We had a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic, so we weren't starting from scratch, but we were the next thing to it. And so we were holding our breath on this one. And we knew that we were going to take a hit on attendance because of the hiatus and because of the change. But now, having said that, I do have a couple of points of anecdote to share. At one point, I was on the large stage doing announcements, and I paused and I said, all right, by a show of hands, how many of you are veterans of the Maine Blues Festival when it was in Naples, and I would say easily 2/3 of the hands went up. So that meant that we brought the Naples audience to Lisbon Falls, and that was pretty huge, I thought. And the other thing, again, anecdotally, over and over again, I heard the following comments. This is the best move you could have done. Again, from folks who were used to the festival. What they liked in particular was the fact that it was closer, more compact, that people could go from one venue to the next within 5 minutes. And that wasn't the case in Naples. We had to have shuttle buses to get people from one venue to the next. Don't need them here. You know, people could walk. And we were concerned a little bit about the sound bleeding over. It wasn't an issue, and everybody could hear the bands without interference from nearby bands. So, you know, that was a big plus. So I know this isn't really a time and a place for putting this to any type of a formal vote, but I'd just like to get a feel for this one. You want us back? You know, and I'm seeing a lot of nodding of the heads.
I don't think there's a question whether any of us had any negative impact of any feedback from it. So I would say absolutely, and I mean, I'm only saying for myself, but I don't think we need a formal vote. I think from the community response and what you heard from Ross, I mean, I think it's only something that's going to get bigger, right? It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And the first year was something that went well, and I think it has only room to go up, right?
Well, that's how we feel about it, you know, and we'll let it grow organically. We won't force the issue. But the reason I ask now is I want to get back on track with our normal timeline and start planning now. I don't want to have to wait till March to plan. So, all right. So with that, I will tell my folks we're on. And so we look forward to 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, I had,
Yeah, any question?
yeah, that was the question.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to attend because I was at the Trek Across Maine, but I heard it was an outstanding event, and I had friends go there who enjoyed it as well, even though it was cold. But,
Yes.
and I was cold. But I wanted to know how the 196 intersection played out with the crowds coming and going.
Well,
Do we as a town need to do something that we can do to that intersection between now and next time?
If I might, these folks looked ahead and they hired a flagger to run that crosswalk.
Okay.
And that made every bit of difference. He was there from noon to 10.
He was outstanding.
And he was
Okay.
phenomenal, absolutely
I heard
phenomenal.
nothing
And
but
I
great.
would recommend, should more events happen in this park, that we make it a requirement of the organizer to hire that flagger, because I think it was a perfect solution.
It's a dedicated
and
soul.
it's a no-brainer. And I don't think it costs a whole lot of money.
It was the best $365 we
There you
spent.
go. There you
It
go.
really was. Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right, time to go to work, I guess.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Good luck
your
with
time.
next year.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other good news or recognition from the council or from the audience?
If I could, I would just like to, since we have them both in the audience, we have Attorney Stephen Langsdorf and Kristen Collins. They're our new town attorneys. Didn't know if you had a moment to just come up to the podium and introduce yourselves and to the council.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Kristen Collins, this is Steve Langsdorf.
Howard, how's everyone tonight?
Doing very well.
So I will be the principal attorney for the town of Lisbon. We're so happy to have you as a new client and a new town, joining, I think, about 24, 25 others, including Brunswick, Wyndham, Kittery, Belfast, and a bunch of small towns in between all over the state. We specialize, I would say, in representing council-led towns and really understand this dynamic quite well. So we and our firm are prepared to handle any possible issue the town has under the sun, and looking forward to doing it.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Steve Langsdorf. Kristen said I'm the practice group chair for Brady Flaherty's Municipal Law and Finance Group. And as Kristen said, we're very happy to work with you. We had a very nice meeting with Ryan and Glenn last week. And just a little bit of background, I was the person who formed the municipal law practice at our firm. I've been practicing in our Augusta office for a little over 35 years. And I've been corporation counsel to the city of Augusta for 23 years, and we put, and I kind of built off of, started with Rangeley and Augusta, and we've built to having about 25 towns that we do. It's very much easier for us now because so much of what we do is able to be done, by Zoom and different ways, so that being able to, we're often in several meetings, a night because we're either dealing with Zoom or otherwise, but we're very happy to work with you. Chris and I are full-time in this group. We also have a third member, Cam Ferrante, who work with us, and then we have sort of every sort of other type of specialty that's available, so we can do all the legal work that a town would need because we have specialists who do regulation, the DEP work, or real estate work, or environmental issues, or whatever else you need, and we're able to have our partners do that for you at a significantly lower rate than they would be paid to do that work for the private clients they work for. So we're happy to do that, and obviously we're always available. Ryan and Glenn know how to get hold of us. We've already had a number of things to do for you, including something that's on the agenda for tonight, but we're available kind of 24/7 to deal with stuff, and look forward to a good relationship with the town of Lisbon.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
we
very
do
much.
appreciate the.
Your office is in Augusta?
Yes, we're in Augusta, and also we work out of Portland as well.
Augusta and Portland?
Yeah, well, we also have office in Concord, New Hampshire, and in Boston. But, we'd be working out of, either Portland or Augusta for here.
Really appreciate the informational documentation you gave us when we were looking for different firms, because it did actually give us a good overlay of what your company provides, and I'm sure we'll use. We don't want to use too much of it, but we definitely, in some areas, we really hope for the guidance. And
You'll get to know a few of the other attorneys as well.
absolutely, that's good. We have a lot of good things happening in Lisbon, and we definitely need some guidance. So we appreciate that.
Well, we'd be happy to do that. So.
And we try to set ourselves apart by being extremely pragmatic in the way we approach problem solving. And to that end, we try to be efficient. We try to be direct. And we try to really have close relationships with the managers and the counselors that we work with, so that we can understand really what's behind what you're asking us to do. So we'll hope to bring that as well.
Perfect. Any other questions from council? I'm sure we will at a
I
later
just
date.
was a recipient tonight of something that Brian forwarded to me from you. So I'm all happy about what you're doing with that, the sign ordinance.
We're going to be redoing a sign ordinance,
Yep.
which is a painful experience that we've done for lots of towns.
So they have experience.
Definitely.
It's painful for us, too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of neat stuff happening. So we do appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm sure we'll have lots of things to do in the future. So
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And if you don't mind sticking around until we get that agenda item done tonight that you drafted for us.
Do it.
Thank you.
anything else, sir? Were you all set?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
All right. Being said, next item, please.
Next item are public hearings. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those present who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address the council chair. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record. The first item, amend Chapter 70, Sections 360 and 536, dimensional requirements for rural open space 2, and Section 70-3622, performance or land use standards.
I'll open that public hearing. If there's anybody from the audience who would like to come up and speak, this will be your opportunity. Seeing no movement, we will close that public hearing. Next one, please.
Next item is the remote meeting policy for town council.
I'll open that public hearing. Again, anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this particular agenda item, please step forward. Seeing no movement, we'll close that public hearing.
Next item is an itinerant vendor permit. Transient seller Andreas Adamson from the Southwestern Company.
And I'll open that public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak? Seeing no movement, we'll close that public hearing.
Next item, audience participation and response for agenda items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address items or issues that are on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record.
Is anybody here would like to speak on anything tonight that's actually on the agenda? This would be your opportunity to speak on anything that is on the agenda. See no movement there also. We'll actually move to the next item, please.
Next item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a councillor requests an item be removed. Any councillor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2022-159 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants, $689,717.93. The municipal payroll warrants, $252,023.62. School accounts payable warrants, $691,011.78. School payroll warrants, $779,281.19. The minutes of June 7th, 2022, and the minutes of June 21st, 2022. Itinerant vendor permit for transient seller Andreas Adamson, the Southwestern Company, and to set a public hearing for August 16th for an itinerant vendor permit for the Little Maine Market LLC and victualers licenses for Little River Coffee and Elite Nutrition.
Entertain the motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you. Next item, whenever you're ready.
Council orders, resolutions, and ordinances. Order 2022-160, remote meeting policy for Town Council. This policy would be effective upon the passage of the order if it passes, and we will do a roll call vote for this item.
We'll open this up a little bit for discussion. I'd entertain a motion so we can have a discussion on it.
I'll make the motion for discussion.
All right, a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So is everybody comfortable? It's been revised a few different times and been looked at, scrutinized. We picked on it. We picked on it again.
Yeah, this is a revision of the last one.
Yeah.
This is the.
Picked on whatever.
Does council feel they need to have any discussion on this, or everybody pretty comfortable with it? And this more or less is just a remote policy, so we can actually do have a particular council that may be away to actually be able to join the council remotely.
Yeah, it's done in accordance with the state.
Yep. Yeah, we're not making anything up here. This is all stuff that's all been tried and proven through COVID. So with that being said, no other discussion. All those in favor?
This will be a roll call.
That's right, too.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fellows?
Yes.
Councillor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Councillor Lunt?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Aye.
Councillor Kane?
Yes.
Councillor Robichaud?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
We have 7 yeas and 0 nays. Order passed.
Thank you. Next item, please, when you're ready.
Next item, Order 2022-161, the marijuana business moratorium. We'll do a roll call vote for this item as well.
All right.
The moratorium ordinance on medical and adult use marijuana establishments is as follows. Whereas, as authorized by Title 22, Section 2429D of the Maine Revised Statutes on August 17, 2021, the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon enacted Articles 11 and 12 of Chapter 10 of the Town Code of Ordinances governing the operation of medical marijuana establishments and adult use marijuana establishments within the town. And whereas on August 17, 2021, the Town Council further voted to amend the table of land uses within Section 70-531 of the Town Code to permit medical and adult use marijuana establishments within certain areas of the town. And whereas these enactments did not include a cap on the number of medical and adult use marijuana establishments or place restrictions on the proximity of such stores to one another, and whereas since enactment of these ordinances and amendments, the number of medical and adult use marijuana establishments in the town has increased substantially, with many such establishments located in close proximity to one another. And whereas the concentration of medical and or adult use marijuana establishments within the town may dissuade other businesses from locating in these areas and may also eliminate retail space that could otherwise be used for a range of businesses as needed for a vibrant community. Whereas the town's current ordinances are insufficient to prevent serious public harm that may result from the insufficiently regulated proliferation of medical and adult use marijuana establishments within the town, and whereas a moratorium is necessary to allow the town council, planning board, and other town officials to review the current town code to determine what modifications, if any, to the permitted locations or approval, licensing, and performance standards for medical and adult use marijuana establishments might be appropriate to address these issues. And whereas it is anticipated that such a review and development of recommended changes to the town code will take at least 180 days from the effective date of this moratorium ordinance on medical and adult use marijuana establishments, now therefore, the Lisbon Town Council does hereby ordain that this moratorium ordinance on medical and adult use marijuana establishments, the moratorium ordinance, be and hereby is enacted, and in furtherance thereof, the Town Council does hereby declare a moratorium on the acceptance of, review of, or action upon any new applications for licenses to operate medical or adult use marijuana establishments, as such terms are defined in Articles 11 and 12 of Chapter 10 of the Town Code. Be it further ordained that notwithstanding the provisions of 1 MRSA Section 302 or any other law to the contrary, this moratorium ordinance, when enacted, shall govern any proposed medical or adult use marijuana establishment for which an application for a license was not submitted to and deemed complete by the town clerk prior to the effective date. And be it further ordained that a medical or adult use marijuana establishment shall be exempt from this moratorium and shall be eligible to receive a license during the pendency of this moratorium if the code enforcement officer or planning board, as relevant, issued approval for site plan, conditional use approval, and or building permits with knowledge of the facility's intended use as a medical or adult use marijuana establishment prior to enactment of this moratorium. And be it further ordained that any provisions of the current town code that are inconsistent or conflicting with the provisions of this moratorium ordinance are hereby repealed to the extent that they are applicable for the duration of the moratorium hereby ordained, and as it may be extended, but not otherwise. And be it further ordained that should any section or provision of this moratorium ordinance be declared by any court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, such a declaration shall not invalidate any other section or provision. The emergency declaration will follow. I can read it now and then repeat it after the vote if you wish.
If you wish.
Okay. The emergency declaration. This moratorium ordinance is hereby enacted as an emergency ordinance in accordance with Section 2.08B of the Town Charter, given the risk of public harm as set forth above, and shall therefore be effective immediately upon enactment, and shall stand as repealed on the 91st day following enactment, unless the Town Council shall have before that date adopted the moratorium pursuant to Section 2.08B.
Entertain a motion for discussion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so we have a first and a second. And I just want to say, I mean, we always appreciate public input at our meetings, and this is a result of public coming in and actually voicing a concern and actually being concerned from the council of something that's happening in our community. And I just wanted to be, it's appreciative when we actually have feedback from the community. So, I mean, whether everybody agrees with it or not, it's one of those things where I think it's always our due diligence to listen and actually act upon it, and then kind of work with it and see what the correct result will be. I think there's a lot of different opinions of this proposal, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. One of the things that we'll do is give the town council and the town government and people 90 days to look at it and kind of figure it out. My proposal, and talking with the interim town manager, is to actually work with a new assistant town manager to actually set up a committee to actually look at the ins and outs, the ups and downs, get people input, and then present it to council and have the council make a decision after within the 90 days of what should happen after. I think there's a lot of facts to be taken in. And whether or not we even choose to actually, after the 90 days, change anything, I mean, that's something that we just need to get the information ahead of time. So the vote tonight will be the idea of just enacting the moratorium as it was written. It will give 90 days for us to work it through without any new permits coming in. And that's pretty much
Mr.
where we're
Chair.
at. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
I have a question about, I understand the charter and the 91 days and the emergency declaration. That doesn't interfere with the whereas 180 days are expected for this, does it?
Let's say 91st day, we'd have to basically renew it on the.
Right, but is that the intention when it was written that way?
We can,
Well,
you
we
can
can defer
ask
to the-
legal.
That's right. We have
Attorney?
legal here, and I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'd be great that they have an opportunity to.
So the moratorium as written would allow the full 180 days. It's just as a matter of procedure under the charter that it gets repealed automatically if the council doesn't reenact it on after the 91st day or within the first 91st. So
I assume we just have to show reasonable progress.
absolutely. And so your options, somewhere around that 90th day would be to either say we're still working on this, we're going to enact this on a permanent basis, permanent, of course, meaning only for the rest of the 180 days, or we've decided we are going to enact these changes at tonight's meeting, or we're going to leave it as is, and we're going to let it stand repealed. But I would suspect, this is a difficult issue, I would suspect it's going to take the 180 days from my experience on it.
Mark, you
Yep.
actually.
My issue was I know there's two applicants going through the planning board process right now, and they haven't got approval yet. I think their meeting is for next week, but they've been accepted as complete. So my question is, should we change the language in the second page on the second paragraph where it says issued approval for site plan? If we could change that to issued acceptance for site plan approval, I think that would clarify that people that have been already accepted for their permits, because I know at least one of the people have bought a building and a piece of land, and I don't think it's fair to make them wait 6 months to try to get a permit for something that's already all in the process, but they weren't quite approved. I don't want to get hung up on that.
Maybe you can clarify that, because when I read through it, I actually assumed that anybody that's in the pipeline that's actually started the process and has been actually gone through planning board, that they actually would still continue through the process.
That's all
The
I
way
read.
it's written, it would pertain only to those that had gotten their approvals and not the ones that are in the pipeline. But
That's why
it's
if we change the
absolutely easy
language.
enough to make that change.
I think if we make that change to accepted for site plan review, then that would clarify
Just
that
to
people in the
clarify how
pipeline.
many there are.
I think
Yeah.
there are two, is my understanding.
That's
There are two.
correct.
They were supposed to have a
Yes.
public hearing at the last planning board meeting, but it didn't get advertised right, so they
Right.
couldn't be. So
Right.
I think it's unfair to them to
I agree.
not allow them to
That's
proceed.
a valid point, and, I'm not sure if that is a substantial change that we can actually just do by modifying the,
Right now,
maybe you want to wait till we,
if you vote on it.
yeah, maybe we want to wait till we actually just iron out the rest of it before we actually make.
Yeah, you can vote to accept it with the changes that you decide to make tonight.
Okay, perfect.
I can get you the language as we sit here.
Okay, that's perfect. And any other questions? I have a couple of questions for while she's up. Does anybody else have?
Got one question.
Sure.
Now, is this an umbrella of everything medical and adult use, from growing to manufacturing to retail stores? I knew you were going to say that. Okay,
The
so
way
this
it's
is a
the
big
way it's
umbrella,
written,
so
it's
nobody can do any cannabis business from this point on in Lisbon.
New businesses.
New business, yeah.
New business.
Unless,
for correct. No new medical or adult use marijuana establishment. That would include cultivation, retail, manufacturing, etc. So
So
that
let's say-
that could also be narrowed if the council wanted.
So let's say if somebody has, let's say, $100,000 in buildings that have been ordered, but they don't have permitting for any of that, it's not in the works, that can't be used for cannabis.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I think if it might be appropriate if Jason wants to comment, he step down and recuse himself. I like
Yeah.
what you're saying, but I
No,
think.
Oh, no, I'm
Totally
not commenting,
agree.
I'm just making sure everyone's clear.
May I? Counselor Smith, will you recuse yourself from voting?
From voting, yes.
So the rules require that you recuse yourself from discussion at this side of the table,
Okay.
okay? And because you seconded the motion
Right.
to enter discussion, we should find another second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
it's all good, boss.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
I just wanted
mean,
to make
it's
sure when we get to the end of everything.
This process, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
While you're up, And you actually did mention this is a very difficult process, and it was actually very difficult for the whole government body. I mean, from planning board to management to council, when all this came through, because the state really wasn't too fair where they, as you know, I'm sure you worked through many long nights trying to figure out where the communities were. One of the things that I have a little bit of concern about with this moratorium is, are we actually open ourselves to any liable for it? I mean, can this be done for any business? Or, I mean, that's what I'm kind of curious about. I mean, is it not proper to pick a particular business and actually put a moratorium for expansion? And to me, that almost seems liable, but that's why you're here. So
It's all about whether you believe everything that's stated in those whereas clauses your clerk just read is true for this community, and that it poses, an emergency, and to the extent that if left unchecked, the businesses would continue to develop and at such a pace that it really would be a problem over the next 3 to 6 months.
See, I had that same question, and for what I can see, we have none of that. There is no proof. We just have people that live here that have opinions, right? But there's no proof that it's hurting anything. There's no proof it's not allowing other companies to come in. I mean, some of these buildings were empty for a long time. I mean, the big one down by the river, right? I mean, that was trying to be sold for different things. And, Cannabis, rented it. I don't know if they own it or rented it, but it'd be empty today. I'm not convinced that some retailer would be there selling clothing or anything like that without proof. I mean, it's too much, to me, it's more about, I don't do it. I don't support it, any of that. But it's like, what's next? Less liquor stores? Extra Mart? What is the store downtown, Rusty's, wants to sell hard liquor, right? They can't because there's already 3 in town. I don't know where it stops, right? I really have emotions with restricting a certain business without any information. I'm more of a fact finder. There's no facts here, right? Whenever I do a problem statement, I'm sure you understand what that is, I can't find the statement here other than emotion. And I can't react on emotion without facts. So, I mean, if you read this, there's no facts. It's not fact-based. So I'm a little worried about the way it's written, because there is no facts. It's just written, you did a great job, but there's no facts. So I'm kind of concerned about that as a councilman for Lisbon.
With your experience with other communities, have you had many that have actually gone through the moratorium process once have actually enacted or been approved? I mean, is that something that you see communities actually, is this actually an ongoing process you see communities that actually did adopt it?
Yes.
Trying to back up a little bit, trying to figure out where the balance is.
We're seeing a lot of communities that were pretty laissez-faire in the beginning realize that there's been this proliferation of businesses and wanting to pull back a little bit, and specifically to enact limits on the number of licenses, particularly for retail.
Yep. And that was one of the comments I made is through the initial discussions, the biggest concern is not so much the manufacturing, it was just more the storefronts, right? I mean, that's kind of what the concern was, and I'm not sure if that's one of the tweaks we need to make on this to actually, and only being that if, a company wanted to come in and wanted to put a multi-million-dollar testing facility that was nothing more than a lab, under this, we wouldn't allow to even be able to consider it until actually was gone through, and I'm not saying that's a different level or something better than not, but it's very broad. It's a very broad reach. If our biggest concern was more in storefronts or retail space, maybe we just need to more fine-tune that to actually make that.
But I mean, like I said, there's a comment in there that it's holding these businesses back. Who's come here and said that? What business has actually come here and said, I don't want to come here due to this or that?
I think as a business owner,
I don't know anybody.
Like, I do see the threat as not having diversity. Like, I need other businesses in the community that will help draw people to Lisbon, as I think, that's of value for the entire town. And if there's a proliferation of all one type of business, those are customers that they're going to come to one spot and then, maybe stop in, maybe leave, but it reduces the diversity of people who might come into the town. So that's where I see the threat. I mean, it has nothing to do with a value judgment on the product. It's just that the more diversity, the more different types of businesses there are to draw people to the town, the more everybody else will prosper. And that's where I can justify there being a threat posed.
Yeah. But again, that's a personal opinion, right? Where's the facts of that threat?
Yeah.
I mean, I go to Extra Mart, I'm only in there for 1 minute, then I leave. Right? That's what I do. I go to Rusty's, I go in there, I buy something, I leave. Right? Where do you draw the line? I mean,
And I think that's one of the important things about the moratorium. It actually does allow us to, not so to speak, change course, but actually reflect on it for a while and find out what our options are and what the community and other businesses and anybody that actually has a concern or not a concern about it to address the council and address the management of what those concerns would be. Do you see any hiccups in this process going forward? I mean, I'm leaning on your expertise. I mean, we're going to actually put our new assistant town manager into a new group of people to actually look this through, and it's not an easy task. I mean, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of different opinions. Is there any wise words of advice that you would give us moving forward, since you've actually been through this route a little bit?
Yeah, and I want to address the point about moratoria and whether you need the facts specifically or whether it's reasonable suspicion is good enough. The way I look at a moratorium is we're trying to solve a problem, and will that problem get worse before we can solve the problem? And so I think that's the rationale you apply to it, and reasonable suspicion in my mind is good enough. We look at all the facts and we think that this could be an issue that requires regulation. So, the more facts you put to it, the better, the stronger it is. But I think that it's probably there to the extent that I understand the issue in town. The idea of limiting the proliferation of stores in particular has been really hard to deal with from a regulatory standpoint. And we represent communities of loads of different ways. Kittery put it to a lottery and was vilified for having done so because people gamed the system. The town of Wyndham that we represent, they did a merit-based system where it was kind of evaluation of the holistic application and who looks more qualified. And they got vilified because people were saying they were given preferential treatment. Some towns have thrown that whole idea out and just said we're going to put in proximity restrictions, so we don't want anybody too close to anybody else. There's a million ways to skin the cat, and none of them are perfect, and everybody will have an opinion. That's why I say it's a process when you're talking about kind of trying to pull it back. And then there's also it's a little bit complicated to write these things, because if you want to pull it back further from where it is now, then you have to rely on attrition and a process for attrition too, so that we're going to sort of take back licenses once they're let go.
I actually was following something just recently because it was similar, much different, but similar. So Poland had a concern in an area about food trucks, so they actually did a kind of a lottery for food trucks, and then it didn't go so well, right?
Not go well, and then they pulled it back.
Yeah, so they end up getting them all back and just finding a new way to actually accommodate them, right? So, I mean, it was something simple. It wasn't even as contentious as, what other people are as food trucks, but they were trying to control something and was, at the end of the day, found out it was really a fight that they couldn't win. So, and whether we're going to be there or not, I guess.
I have a question for the clerk.
Sure.
Lisa, do you know how many current retail establishments we have permitted in town? Not medical, but actual retail storefronts.
Well, the medical are considered retail.
But I mean non-medical storefronts.
There's only one right now.
That's what I thought. There's only
That's
one.
Right. There's only one
non-medical.
Non-medical or adult use business. All the rest are medical.
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah.
Is it a consensus of the council that we would look at just storefronts in this, or do you think we ought to just leave it as written? I mean, that's.
I think we should vote on the moratorium and
then go from there.
Discuss it over the next 90 days.
Can I ask a question too before we? Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say that my position on the moratorium is that I was elected by a number of citizens in the town, and I've spoken with a number of the people that voted for me about this issue, and the overwhelming opinions from them were that they would like to see a moratorium. So regardless of how I feel about it, I'm voicing support for the moratorium based on my constituents, the people that voted for me.
Understand.
And I too agree with that. I've had numerous people tell me the same thing. I do have a question though. Is it possible that after 90 days we can void parts of the moratorium, for example, manufacturing or any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you'd want to do, if you're going to keep it as is for the 90 days, but for that completed application piece, you would just, when you take it up again within the 90 days, you would vote to repeal the moratorium as written and adopt the changes.
Okay.
Councilor Smith would like to address the council as an audience participation. Is that council all good with that?
Sure.
Yeah, he does that too. Please state your name and.
Jason Smith, from Lisbon Cannabis, and I've been doing business in the town for a long time. Recently, we've put a lot of money into the old Rumbo site, kind of clearing it out and getting it ready for a recreational grow. And I haven't gone the full, as far as getting my permit and everything, because I've been putting every dime we've had into the property. So I just got some buildings ordered, and I hope that it doesn't, I hope we don't put a moratorium on every part of the cannabis, because I believe every constituent and everybody you're talking to, 99.9% of them are having an issue with all the stores right downtown. They're not having an issue with the grows out in the industrial park. They're not having an issue with a grow that's going to be going out where an old mill used to be that was all torn down and dilapidated. We're putting new buildings up, making it look really nice and professional, cleaning it up. And I just don't think there should be any type of deterrence against doing something like that, especially when we have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested.
Jason, is it under the same business name?
No, it's going to be under a different
Okay.
business name, but it's going to be adult use versus medical. So it was just going to be in a different location, just to grow, but under this new moratorium, I mean, we can always make something happen in a different town, but we like Lisbon, and I'd like to stay here, and the reason for buying that property, investing all this money into it, was for this reason. But I'm not quite ready to get into that adult use part yet. It's very expensive, and there's a lot more to it, so we've just been soaring along. So I just hope you take that part into consideration. Rather than waiting 90 days, changing it then, just make it today. All right, I believe it's storefronts, and if people are coming and say, no, we have a problem with these grows, and we've got a problem with everything else, then we can look at it in 90 days or next meeting. But I'm pretty sure it's just about the storefronts.
I think too, part of it is perception, and part of it is perceived that way by signage. And it doesn't matter if you are doing manufacturing or anything else. You make it more visible when you put a big sign on it. And I think that's where the moratorium comes to play on. It could come to play on non-retail or non-storefront operations that same way.
But if we're gonna, I mean, at least I personally am making the argument that the threat is in the diversity of the business in the community, then like the grows have nothing to do with that, and I would support eliminating grow from the moratorium, and that we just focus on retail establishment, whether it be medical or recreational.
And we're not going to have signs on the grows. We're going to have the address. That's
Do
it.
you eliminate manufacturing?
I would say that's the part that grows fall under, right?
Yeah, because they're making edibles.
Right. If you're growing.
Yeah.
Well, it's only the storefronts.
We learned that manufacturing is a
So I
very
forget what all
broad word.
Broad.
Very broad word, yep.
Yes.
Yep.
But again, I just think it's mainly the storefronts. So
Thank you.
just
You know,
something to think about.
that's what you do here, and you do here the big sign, on that brick building, right? That's the biggest complaint, right? That's what they see. It's big, right? So a lot of people don't like the sign, right? So I think if the sign was smaller, you'd have less people complaining,
That's a whole
right?
other issue.
But it's just a whole other thing, right? But I mean,
Just
I
move
have
them.
the same thing as Council Moore said, right? A lot of people that voted for me talked to me also. Some don't want any more downtown storefronts, right? Some don't want restrictions on businesses, right? They don't think it's right. I've had owners talk to me about, what's next? Are they going to start restricting what I'm doing, right? Meaning us. So, there's all different.
There's a bunch of different conversations.
Right, there's all different things going on right now, right?
So moving this subject forward, so we actually have one change to it, which actually is changing the idea of the permitting, the
To
idea
make sure
of
that
once
people that are in the pipeline
are approved.
not
And
blocked in favor.
Don, you were just going to say,
Well, I was thinking if wherever it gets revised to have it affect only storefronts,
okay,
I think that would accomplish what we really have been addressed about mostly.
yep.
I agree.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Do we have wording for that?
Change it to just be retail or medical and retail storefronts. Or we could,
I was scrambling in the
Yeah, we
ordinance
could-
to see
when-
how,
we could just exempt the, manufacturing and growing and testing sites.
We have to, you exempt a category.
Right,
Yeah.
right, that's what I mean, those are the categories, storefronts.
this is imperfect because I'm not sure that it matches the exact definitions under the licensing ordinance, but it's at least close enough. For the purposes of tonight, we could just say, add retail in every place where it says medical and adult use marijuana establishments. Just have it say medical and adult use marijuana retail establishments.
And as far as the permitting part of it, is that a simple change that we can,
Yes, and I've got language for that. So this would be the third to the last, be it further ordained. That would be changed to, be it further ordained that a medical or adult use marijuana establishment shall be exempt from this moratorium and shall be eligible to receive a license during the pendency of this moratorium if an application to the code enforcement officer or planning board, as relevant, has been submitted to and deemed complete for site plan, conditional use approval, and/or building permits, with the rest unchanged.
can we actually make the amendment by what she actually presented, by legal counsel?
Yes.
Presented. That way there, we're not trying to reword what she just said, make sure it's right, that's all.
Yeah, what I'll do is I took notes and then I'll make sure that using the video and whatever she sends me, that we get exactly what the intent of council is.
And with that being said, is there anything else we need to talk about prior to going to a roll call vote? Seeing none, we do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Excuse me 1 minute. Kristen, would you be able to send us an updated?
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right. Councillor Smith will abstain. Councillor Robichaud?
No.
Councillor Moore?
Aye.
Councillor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Councillor Kane?
Yes.
Councillor Lunt?
Yes.
Councillor Fellows?
Yes.
Sorry.
Nope,
Just
very
1 second.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have 5 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. We require 5 yeas for the order to pass, so the order passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, do you actually want an official motion to actually have your staff work on this? I mean, I know in the past we've actually, you felt more comfortable if it came directly from the councils using staff time to work on this. Do you feel that's appropriate, or do you think we had enough discussion to move forward with that?
I'd like to have the assistant town manager establish a committee involving, I don't see him here tonight, but at least involving the original gentleman that came forward to bring this topic up. I think he should be involved in the discussion. And I've had some other people reach out as well, but I'd like to put the assistant town manager, Glenn Mikulowski, in charge of putting the committee together and working on this during the moratorium.
Just some guidance from the council on the formation of a steering committee. If there's going to be a couple councilors, obviously can't have a quorum, or the formal action, like how you want the steering committee composed.
I would make a recommendation that you actually kind of do an outline of what you feel would be best. I mean, you have some background in some of this, so you kind of figure out what you would like to see. I mean, I would like to see at least a couple councilors on there so they can report back to council, but if you're going to be directing the ship, I'll let you kind of figure out what you want, and then we can try to find the right group that will work together and try to come up with some solid answers. Is that something you want to vote on by the council, or you think you're good enough? Is there any questions on council, or we all start allowing the manager?
I think we're all set.
Is there two councilors that would like to volunteer to be on the committee with Glenn this evening? So we'll start the process with at least two councilors publicly who will be on the committee.
Well, I think we ought to have a diversity on this, so maybe
I'll get on it.
and Harry or Mark or.
Sure, I'll get on it.
All right. I mean, that would be an interesting discussion coming to the end. That'd be worthwhile anyway. So.
Council Moore and Council Robichaud.
There you go. We appreciate
Thank
that
you.
too, because it's not going to be an easy subject, you know, and at the end of the day, you're not going to make everybody happy, and we haven't through this whole process. So,
I'm not against it or for it. I just want to understand the direction that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I think we need to try to find some kind of a reasonable solution that addresses both sides of the coin there.
Just want to make sure when, to your point, we don't become liable, right?
Absolutely.
And we do want to be fair to businesses and allow, competition between people.
Right.
Perfect.
And we don't have to get vilified. Right.
Thank you. I guess it's really hard to get any quicker response from legal team, so we do appreciate that, you know.
No, that was quick.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be really, maybe that remote thing where we
With
just
every
hit a button.
$100 we pay you.
Perfect. With that being said, let's move forward.
The next item is Order 2022-162. This is the Police Department request for purchase of firearms.
And we're going to allow Chief to represent tonight, so.
All right. And thank you, Councilor LaRochelle. So the police department, every 10 years, we replace the firearms for the handguns for the police department. And our 10 years is up, and that's a recommended for, safety. Obviously, they get old. We do a lot of training with them. This is already budgeted for this fiscal year 23 of $16,000. The department has spent the last year testing out firearms from different manufacturers, which would be best for our department. The firearms are a sole source directly through a vendor at a discounted rate for law enforcement. So there is no low rate we can acquire, which is why I'm asking to waive the 3-bid process. I'm requesting permission to purchase through a sole source Sig Sauer vendor who is a direct vendor for all of New England. The firearm selected is a Sig Sauer with a Romeo 1 Pro sight, and included in the price are new updated triple retention holsters to fit the department, as well as updated lights. It's a Sig Sauer P320X package that we have tested out, and we'd like to move forward with purchasing these at the law enforcement rate, which is the lowest rate that we can get. So
I'll make the motion that we do this, approve.
Second.
Just one quick question now, with extra staff possibly coming on, do we actually budget enough and have enough allocated to take care of what we need to for replacement? I'm not sure if you buy
yes, we do.
extras or-
So with this, we have to have extra firearms at our disposal in the armory in case we get in an officer-involved shooting. Our firearms then seized and go to the Attorney General's office, where those firearms become evidence, and a lot of times it can take years before you get those back. So in the armory, we would be turning in, because at one point we were at 16 officers, so we do have firearms in the armory, and we'd be trading those in, and the trade price on that will allow us to have the extra firearms needed with the $16,000 to have extra firearms available if needed with the positions.
Are these 40 calibers?
Nope, these are 9 millimeters, and that's at the recommendation. See, that's the old school look right
I
there.
know, yeah.
So there's been ballistic testing done. We carry the Hornady tap rounds, and those rounds we've had ballistic gel testing completed. Actually at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy during the firearms school, they had ballistic testing completed, and the 9 millimeter actually outperformed the 40 caliber in ballistic testing. And basically, a law enforcement officer isn't pulling a firearm. We hope we never have to, but we're not pulling a firearm to shoot to wound, because it's not the movies. It's to stop a threat. So you're looking for, not to get into too much, but we're looking for maximum damage to stop the threat immediately, especially with school shootings and everything else you see around the country. We don't want to take risks. We want to stop the threat immediately if it happens. The 9 millimeter, some people think whether it's say a 40 or 45, they think larger is better. This is a situation where it's not. Technology has come so far with the ballistics of the bullet. We can actually get a 9 millimeter Hornady tap round that outperforms the 40 and 45 caliber round. And on top of that, they're also less expensive than the 40 or 45 caliber round, and they're actually more available because the U.S. military also carries 9mm, so more available as far as the practice rounds. So,
The Romeo 1 Pro sight.
Romeo 1 Pro is the red dot optic.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. I've used that a lot. Of course, it was in Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
How come you don't use iron sights?
Yeah, is there going to be, obviously there's going to require some more training
Absolutely.
than normal with open sights like the old days.
Absolutely. And as also, we have the firearms instructor will be going to the Sig Sauer school. There's actually an actual school for that. One of the reasons why we like the Sig Sauer, this particular model, is because even though we have the red dot optic, if the optic for whatever reason went out, you can still co-witness through the glass and still see your sights, just like the old school way of doing it with iron sights. Our officers will be required to qualify both with the optic and with the iron sights. It won't change anything. But as with Call of Duty and on live range, because I actually own one and have owned one of these firearms for years, but I'm not the one that made the decision. I had my team of officers that tried them out make the decision. It's much more accurate. It's literally pinpoint, and you can go a lot farther away to make those shots. So.
Any other questions from council? This does not need to be a road call, so all those in favor?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please, whenever you're ready.
Order 2022-163, election of county budget committee members. The Androscoggin County Budget Committee official ballot has 2 candidates. The town council is asked to vote for 2. They are Angela Mitchell of Sabattis and Sabattis select person Noel Hinckley.
There's 2, and we have 2, so I guess it's I'll entertain a motion for the council. Should it be done through a motion and a vote? Or
Yeah, we'll need a vote. I do have an official ballot from the county that I'll need council to sign.
Yes, sir.
Make the motion that we vote for those 2.
Yeah. Second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Order
I
pass.
guess the next question is how does it get to this point where those 2 people were actually nominated? I mean, is that something that's done on a county level?
You know, I called the county to ask them because this ballot just sort of appeared and bounced around offices before it got to me. And I spoke with the commissioner's office, and evidently the candidates are chosen earlier in the year, and we just didn't have very many people who threw their hat in.
I guess it would be nice moving forward for us to have a better idea of what that process is. And it's actually, if you read the ballot, it's not actually 2 elected officials. It's actually 1 elected official and 1 citizen from Sabattis,
right,
from what I read. So
yeah, what it says,
it's pretty broad. Just curious on how those names actually came about. That's
what they do is they have a caucus. Right. And like caucuses for parties, and these are the only 2 people
showed up.
Well, it might be. We do have to. The rules do say that we have to elect 1 person has to be a municipal official from one of the towns, and the towns for us are Lisbon, Sabattis, and Wales. And so 1 person has to be a municipal official, and the other person can be, but doesn't have to be. It can be a citizen.
And I'm not, taking away from any of these 2 people. It's just one of those things that it seems different from the past. But and maybe it's just I wasn't paying attention as much. That's all.
I'm in the dark too. So what my plan is for next year is to reach out early in the year and find out when that caucus is, so that if we have interested folks, because the first thing I thought was, because there were only 2 people on the ballot, I looked up previous years. There are usually only 2, 3, or 4 people on the ballot, but to maybe find out more about the caucus that they have, so that next year we can be a little bit more prepared with knowing what's going on. I know Councillor Lunt is always looking, okay, it's coming soon, and so it sounds to me like you weren't notified either.
Nothing about it.
Right, right, and I don't think many people were.
They should be bringing that up at the county commissioner meetings.
Yeah, and I would,
I think probably because Alan Ward wasn't on it, that's why we knew about it.
yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, before I voted for these two people, it'd be nice to have them be present, actually at least introduce themselves and what they're looking to do, right? But again, maybe I'm just asking too much, but it's just hard to vote for someone that's strictly you're looking at a name, not really what they represent. So,
We can look at requesting that next year.
Yep.
Okay.
perfect. Well, we voted for them, so they're in, so we can actually hold their feet to the fire if it doesn't work, so we'll play it, we'll go with that route at this point. So with that being said, next item, please.
Okay. Next item is Order 2022-164, Planning Services RFP.
So,
Would you like to present, or at least go over a little bit what the details are prior to us?
sure. So a couple meetings ago and at a couple planning board meetings ago, we were asked to prepare an RFP for a contract for planning services to assist the planning board with some, I guess, less straightforward submissions. The RFP you have in your agenda backup packet, and after getting feedback from the planning board and councilor fellows, this is the final product. Just a review of the scope. You know, and this is at our discretion, help reviewing site plans and subdivision applications, facilitate community listening sessions, assist the planning board as directed as it relates to the R01 and R02 rural open space zones, help assess our long-range planning goals. I mean, even if we wanted to explore the comprehensive plan updates, we'd be contracting with a planning firm for a year. Would be advertised tomorrow through the usual channels and close on August 3rd. And if there's any other questions or feedback on the RFP.
I mean, I do have a couple questions. Maybe we'll just make a motion so we can have discussion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions?
No, I've been involved.
I know you have, yep. One question I have is the way this is written, will the firm be able to actually work with our town government prior to it going to planning board if we actually have a large project comes into the community? I mean, is it written to the point where it would serve as a person that would help us work through, you know, big projects? I mean, some of the, if we would have a big project come in town, sometimes there's a lot of legwork before it gets to planning board. I'm just wondering if it's written in a way that would actually.
There is.
There is, okay.
Yeah, the scope of services allows for the firm to assist other town departments and committees with planning-related questions as necessary.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that it was
Yeah,
a broad
try to
description.
keep it broad enough so that whatever comes up, we can get
Make it
something.
work.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's a great move. Any questions prior to vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank
Order
you.
passed, 7-0.
Hopefully we get a good response.
USM, University of Southern Maine, has a listserv for all planners, and the state has a pretty in-depth list of municipal land use planners, so I'll send that out to everybody. That's publicly available to send it to. So.
Perfect, thank you. Sounds good. Thank you for your work on that.
Nice work, Glenn.
Next item, please, whenever you're ready.
Next item is Order 2022-165, the Fire Department purchase of a hydraulic extrication equipment.
Yes. In the CIP and in the budget, I budgeted for Phase 2 of replacing of our hydraulic extrication equipment. These are the tools that's formerly known as the Jaws of Life. These are just replacing a couple of the older stuff. Our stuff's getting 20-plus years old in the hydraulics, and well, you know what that means when things get old. So this is Phase 2. 4 years ago, the fire department went through and did an evaluation of tools. They chose this particular brand tool, which is a Genesis brand tool, and we purchased the first set 4 years ago. This time, we're placing 2 more sets of tools that we have. Like a lot of our equipment, we only have one vendor in the state of Maine that sells this brand tool, and I'm requesting to go sole source with HSE Enterprises in Lewiston to purchase the Genesis tools at a price of just around $28,300 and something dollars is what was quoted to us.
Entertain a motion for discussion.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions to our fire chief? Same equipment as last time? Has it changed at all, or is?
No, it's, this time it's their same brand, but they're different uses. One's going to be a hydraulic ram, which displaces the dashboard.
Spreader, whatever.
Yeah, and the other one is a different size cutter. That's what we're looking at, plus some accessories. So we can do different things by removing the tips. One of the big things we like about this tool is the balance. The maintenance is a little easier. We can do a lot of maintenance ourselves. We're sending out to a third party to get done. And the cutters have replaceable cutting edges versus a lot of the other brands and the older styles where if we have the cutters go bad, we had to replace the entire cutting arm, which is expensive.
Wasn't there an issue for the last bid process on battery too, the idea of the proprietary battery
Right,
versus
because the other brand that we evaluated, which was a proprietary battery, which was 300 and something, 4 years ago, was $300 and something a piece. The brand tool we bought, the Genesis, uses a Milwaukee battery. Now you can't buy this Milwaukee battery at a Home Depot, but I can get it through Bath Industrial, so I can get it locally.
I remember that was a big selling point last time. So
yeah, that was the big selling point for us then. Yeah.
Any other questions? When's our next replacement? Is the ones we bought 4 years ago going to be replaced 4 years from now, or?
No, I'm hoping to get a good 15 years out of these tools. So probably talking for the next complete round to be done, probably 10 to 12 years down the road behind this. Just try to keep up on that.
So we're in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be one more unit that we want to replace, probably in a couple of years. That's a combi tool, that is both cutter, that is a cutter and a spreader that we currently have. But I'm looking at relocating that to the other side of town so we have a backup. But that's probably going to be a couple years on the road before that gets replaced.
Perfect. Thank you. No other questions? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Councilors who were on the council 4 years ago remember that Council Ward at the time asked what we're going to do with our old tools. And we donated the old tools to a department that could use them up north. And if it's okay with the council, I'd like to proceed with doing the same thing this time. Taking the old tools, if someone can use them in a small department that could utilize them.
And the tools that you're actually replacing are not consistent with the tools we have now, so they're not backups. They're basically just a different animal.
Yeah.
Any council have any concerns with that at all?
That's a good idea.
You know, to me, I think if there's a need.
If they get any old Halligans they want to trade, police department would take them. Just run it by them. Those aren't cheap. They're always fire department's always replacing stuff. So.
Only when they break them.
All right. Thank you, Chief, very much.
Thank you.
Maybe you're ready for the next item?
All right. Order 2022-166 to amend Chapter 70, zoning ordinance, sections 361 and 536, dimensional requirements, rural open space 2, and Chapter 70, zoning ordinance, section 3622, performance or land use standards. This will require roll call vote, and this is the second reading.
Thank you. Thank you for the heads up on the vote, too. It makes it go a lot easier, right? Entertain a motion for discussion.
I make that motion.
Second. All right. Don, you actually had a little bit of information on this, and I know our planning board chair is there also.
I'd like to defer to Mr. Cool to give a summary of what we're passing. My knowledge of it came in the beginning and in the middle and left and whatever. I think you have the latest.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on being here tonight, just so you know.
Yeah, we do appreciate you being
here.
Thanks. It's a tweak to the rural open space standard that has created such problems for people who are trying to subdivide their lands, mostly along the Route 9 corridor, with people there who are trying to make use of their own lands and make them comply with the existing statute, which we had problems making work in any way, shape, or form, which is one of the things that drove our knowledge of a need for a planner who would have hopefully helped us streamline and uncomplicated the issue. This is a fix to a problem that exists. It hopefully will be a permanent fix for the problem that exists and allow the people to use the land in the way they've asked us to do so. That's
And-
very bare bones, but that's it.
And with that being said, we actually, this isn't a stopping point. We actually have a lot of other areas in the community that hopefully once we get a planning service that we can look at and address other concerns, because this concern does actually go widespread. I mean, a lot of things that we.
So as we were looking at this, it made us aware that what was in the last comp plan may not be appropriate for the world that we live in right this moment. And there were inconsistencies within the comp plan too that we need to tweak and adjust and correct. But we want people to be able to use their land to the best of their abilities, staying within the standards and keeping within the spirit of what that part of town is. And other discussions are for down the road.
We thank you for your explanation, sir. Any other questions from council prior to vote?
Just a statement, that one of the most complicated things about it was the way the dimensional standards were set up before on a 1.5 to 1 ratio, and it got very difficult to work with, so that was part of the major change.
And there were maximum lot size allowance, which is really strange, and I don't understand the purpose of putting that in there, because usually you have minimum lot
Not
size,
maximum.
but not maximum, right? So you can't create a parcel that's bigger than that. Well, okay, you already have existing parcels that are bigger than that, so
We're non-conforming.
creates
rules,
it creates
right?
a lot of non-conforming issues.
All right, if there's no other comments, we'll actually start with the roll call vote, please.
Councillor Moore?
Aye.
Councillor Robichaud?
Yes.
Councillor Kane?
Yes.
Councillor Fellows?
Yes.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Councillor Lunt?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed. 7-0.
Perfect. Appreciate your patience. Next item?
Next item is other business, starting with council committee reports.
The school, I have nothing to add tonight since there's not a whole lot going on in the middle, but I do, with that being said, I have heard a lot of positive feedback about the council's decision to add a second resource officer. I think it's actually a good comment out there, and people think it's a good move, so. Planning board?
The last planning board meeting was mostly about the marijuana businesses that we were just discussing tonight, and their applications were accepted as complete. And it was intended to have a hearing, but that didn't happen because the proper posting was not quite complete anyway, so the hearing didn't happen. But the other part of the discussion was the sign ordinance, which came up for discussion, and as a result, was sent to our attorney. And our attorney is working with, will be working to rewrite it, which will go before the planning board at some point.
Perfect. Lisbon Library?
The library is still open for business despite the construction work down on Main Street. People can still scoot in there, and it's still seeing brisk business. And the summer reading program has got underway, and so it should be going well. So that's all I have to report.
Conservation Committee?
We got nothing.
Okay. Parks and Rec? And we actually don't have that. It's coming up as our next item on the agenda. County budget?
I can mention that the gazebo is erected at Graziano Square,
Perfect. That's good.
mostly. I'm
Mostly,
sure it's
yeah.
not done, but
It's in process.
The roof's coming. It's forthcoming.
It's in the works. Yep, it's actually very nice. I mean, it's actually nice to look at. County budget, more in Lund. Not really a whole lot to add besides the idea we just voted a couple people
we
in.
voted a couple of people in we don't know what they're supposed to do. But
Yeah. Nice. Interesting. Library, you actually mentioned that already. Water Commission?
The Water Commission met tonight at 5:30. One of the things they did was change their meeting time for going forward till 3 in the afternoon, which may or may not stick going forward, but at least for the next meeting it's that way. They had established some appearance standards or standards for uniforms and things like that. They just put that in place tonight. New dress code is what I wanted to say. And they continue to be deeply involved with what's going on Main Street with lots of give and take and back and forth. And anyway, it's a complicated process, as we all know.
I've seen the truck out there and representatives there when I was leaving work, so I'm sure it is.
Yep.
And Finance Committee?
We haven't met, and there's nothing scheduled either at this time.
Yep. More to come, right?
Yeah, more to come.
All right, and that leads us to the next item, please. which is a council assignment to
Okay.
the Recreation Committee, right?
Did we miss one?
Did we? Which one?
Lisbon Development Committee.
Lisbon Development Committee, I am sorry about that.
That's all right. I was waiting for Ross to say something. I mean, with the Blues Festival, it clearly shows how well things went down at the Warumbo site. I think that shows the potential. And if we had a whole bunch of housing complexes and stuff down there, I don't know how well or how appealing it would be to the Blues Festivals and those people coming back in the future. But, I mean, as far as that, the Moxie Festival seemed to go great, bringing people into town. And the entire Warumbo site was full of cars.
Perfect.
I think that was it.
Did I get them all this time?
Yes, that was the last one.
I know. I usually sometimes skip over a few, and I think I even put the library in.
Yeah, I think we just swapped those
What I
two.
did, now looking back.
You're just keeping me on my toes.
Absolutely. Someone needs to do the same to me. Council assignment for Recreation Committee. Does anybody have an interest in actually doing a Recreation Committee?
I do.
You do?
Sure.
Perfect. That's awesome. Do you know when they meet?
Yeah.
If you don't, we will make sure that you get that information so you can be right on top.
Well, I'm on the Conservation Commission, which is...
Not the same night, but a different,
Yeah.
led by the same people, so.
Yeah.
Perfect. We appreciate that.
Next item is the town manager's report.
All right. Moxie was a great weekend. A very large turnout, actually probably one of the largest turnouts I've seen along the parade route. But everything went really well. I wanted to thank all the employees and volunteers because there was a lot of work, probably more so. Probably happens every year the same way. But being involved with it at the town manager's level, there's a lot of work that's put into this by the town employees and a lot of volunteers in the community. So it went really well, and it was a smooth weekend in the police department. And the fire department got some great reviews after the fireman's muster. It was a lot of people in the community have reached out, actually. But it's been really good, and the rec department did a great job putting it together. And it's great to see when the community comes together. So, also wanted to talk about the Main Street project for a moment. I was contacted by McGee Construction this morning. They asked about shutting down Main Street next week between Union Street and Main Street intersection and Route 196 and Main Street intersection. Pretty straightforward. My first concerns were concern. They explained that this would allow them to do 2 weeks worth of work in 1 week. They also felt it was a safety concern by not closing the road down because the pipe they needed to replace, which is actually the last one, is in such bad shape. So I decided to go door to door to all the businesses on Main Street today. Spoke to all the business owners except for one I was not able to get in hold of. I contacted all the other ones. I was able to get in touch with them by phone and said, explained that the situation, that they were going to be able to do 2 weeks worth of work in 1 week if they shut the road down. They explained that as long as foot traffic could still get to the businesses, they're parking in the same parking lots, and as long as they could still walk to the stores, it wouldn't change anything, because with the one lane, it doesn't allow people to park on the side of the road anyways. So I did ask about the evenings, being able to reopen it to one lane during the evening. They said if they were going to do it the way they were going to do it, that wouldn't work. It'd defeat the purpose because they're going to put in 14-plus hour-long days to get this project done. They explained after this last portion between Main Street and 196 to Union Street, in front of the University of Maine building right there, once they get this last bit of piping done, they'll be done tearing that road up. And the only thing they have left is the sidewalks and the streetlights, and then pave it. So I asked them for a time frame when that would be completed by, and they said, well, once they get the piping and whatnot, they're thinking about a month, and they'll have that completed. Their biggest hiccups, as everybody has spoke about, is lines breaking as they're moving along. So once it passes, they'll be in good shape. So I thought we were good on that after speaking to all the businesses, and then I got a phone call this evening before the meeting that there is some important parts that won't be here till the middle of next week. So they now cannot do it next week, and then they're going to ask to do it the following week. So we need to make sure we get in touch with all the businesses. Luckily, I have all of it right here. I already spoke to her. But so I'm going to have McGee Construction put a flyer together, as long as council is okay with closing the road down. But it'd be the previous week of the 25th I'm going to ask that they do it this time. Go to the businesses with a flyer, something they can give them saying it's going to be closed this week. I did speak to them about making sure we have pedestrian crosswalks crossing the road. That was a concern for Flex Restaurant, making sure they were going from the parking lot, be able to cross the road without any issues. They said wouldn't be an issue. So with council's approval tonight, I'll give them the go-ahead and close the road week of the 25th between those two intersections. That way they can get that work done and get moving on this. Businesses have been pretty great, and they do appreciate the communication because the office, clerk's office, as well as Public Works Department, has been posting a lot on whether it's social media or the emails. So it was nice to hear from a couple of businesses today that they appreciate that. So good work to the town employees and making sure they're reaching out. And I know Ross has been down there quite a bit as well, reaching out to employees. So that's where I'm at. I'm just looking for permission from the council for the week of the 25th to allow McGee Construction to close that section of the roadway.
Would you like a motion and a vote on that to make it official, or?
Yes, if I could, because I'll need council's approval to close a road.
Entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, and the motion is to close the week of the 25th.
Yeah, and it will only be between the intersection of Main Street at Union and Maple down to Route 196. And just to be clear, Union Street will be open to cross Main Street and go up Maple, and Main Street will be open southbound all the way down to that location. I also asked that a flagger be stationed at School Street, so if any tractor-trailer trucks come down, they won't get stuck at Union Street, and they said that they would do that as well.
All those in favor?
Yeah, thank you.
And I do want to actually commend McGee for cleaning up before Moxie. I thought they were just going to move stuff off to the side, but they actually hauled everything off site. I mean, that was definitely a day of non-productivity when you're actually taking all your equipment on site and hauling it across town, so you can actually have a nice clear. You only can do so much with a road that's bricked up, but I think they actually did present pretty well, and it was two-way traffic, and I think that's what we asked, and that's what they did. So we definitely want to work with them for sure. So.
And I have to add to that McGee Construction has been really decent to work with, and Shane Amoroso from Thailand answer every phone call, every email, which is really great to see. So.
Is this where you do the disclaimer about the McGee?
No relation.
There's no relation from Ryan McGee to McGee Construction at all. Although I was warned by someone that if they did DNA, they would find a sliver somewhere, somehow. So, but
understood.
But that's what I have for the town manager's report. So thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, the vote was 7-0, so the order passed.
Thank you.
Next item is department head written reports.
Did everybody actually get a chance to read them? There's a lot going on, a lot of activity going on. We appreciate the department heads putting those out, and I believe I was corrected that some of these actually do make it onto our website, right, as far as on the
They all do now.
They all do now?
Yep. I created a button to make it easier for the department heads to be able to upload at the same time that they finish the report and submit it to the clerk for the meeting. They also can easily post it on their section of the website. So it seems to be, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it seems to be working out fine.
Yep. Technology, right?
For us non-IT people, it didn't look as easy as it could have actually been. Well, with a button, it's a lot easier now.
So with that being said, just for the public, I mean, we actually get department head reports monthly, and now the public can actually go online and pretty much see what's happening with the departments. And again, you don't think there's a lot going on till you read what's happening, and that goes down to the fire department and the police department, number of calls, what they're doing, what's happening, and so yeah, good stuff. So if anybody has any interest, or if someone has a question what the town's doing, just send them to the site and say, take a look. It's always there. So good, thank you.
Next is the review of council goals.
I asked Chief to actually put this out. We actually, as a council, make some goals to make sure that we actually have a way to monitor what we're doing throughout the year. Asked Chief to put together, and he was actually pretty much right on top of it, because there's a lot of goals that have been actually kind of, at least if not completed, actually in their path. It was actually in the packet, so you could see, but definitely some of the goals, and I'll just run through these pretty quick. Hire a new town manager. I mean, it's it's not as easily said and done as what it sounds like it is. So we're in the process of doing it, and I think tonight the council's have the discussion, on that, ongoing of how we actually do that. But on this area, I just want to make sure that the whole town knows that we are not rushing to hire a manager. We're going to make sure we have a very qualified, right fit for this position. So that is in the works. Fill open staff position to 100%. Has that even changed since you actually filled this out? And we're pretty close, right?
Actually, there's more positions that have been added. So, or not positions, but filled. We're getting there.
Gotta love the yellow ink.
Yeah, you got a lot there. A lot of things are happening. Yep. So I mean, I think the staff in the town office is thankful that there's actually employment for most positions now, and everybody can kind of focus on their responsibilities and doing well. And I think that's been a great thing. Add 250 housing units. See, goal 12. I mean, this is ongoing. If nothing else, it's on our radar, right? We actually know with some of the improvements coming to town and some of the businesses that are expanding, there will be some need over and beyond, but probably what our last report was. So that's something we're working on. Moving forward with the public safety building. Basically, you want to just give a quick update on that, other than what's in the yellow, just so people have.
Yeah, pretty much. Port City architect that was contracted by the town. They are doing an analysis of the fire departments right now, and part of it is to see whether it's going to be 2 departments, 1 department, combination, condition of the buildings. They've looked at the police department, size of the police department, the area, the space. They're in the documenting stage and evidence fact gathering stage, and essentially later on this summer once they come back with all the facts, we'll put a committee together to be more involved with the firm to be able to work on this and see what the best direction is for the town, because this isn't just now. This is 30, 40, 50 years out of the direction of the community and where we need to be. So they've been great to work with so far, and have put a lot of documents together so far, but they continue to work on it and meeting with myself and the fire department. I know they were here one day, and they were literally here for the entire day meeting with the fire chief, going over everything. So pretty thorough.
So we're in the process.
Yeah.
We're actually getting the right information. That's good. Recover from COVID restrictions. Completed. I think Harry actually put the word out there, plexi down, right? And I think we're actually pretty much there. Not that we're still not being safe and moving forward, but actually it looks a lot different than it did a year ago. So.
And the only one that wasn't removed is more of a safety glass that the front counter personnel decided that they wanted to keep there. So one of their wishes, but all the other plexiglass has been removed. So.
Perfect. Rejuvenate Lisbon Village. That's a long-term process, but I think we're working on it, right?
Absolutely. There's a lot going on with that, but with the gazebo, as well as the Ferry Road project, and just recently the last council meeting with the Public Works Director speaking about updating Village Street with some of the Ferry Road project money. We'll be coming to you to the next council meeting with some more information on that to get started on that project. But that's really going to update that. It's going to give Graziano area or Village Street a brand new facelift, I guess you could say, all new road and sidewalks and everything. So,
just wanted to touch base on that because I think the report we had earlier really said a lot. The idea that we are one community, right? So stuff that happens in Lisbon Falls does affect what happens in Lisbon. I mean, the idea of having an event in Lisbon Falls, the businesses in Lisbon actually benefiting from. I had someone before at the parade ask me, why are we doing the car show, not we, the community, at Beaver Park, just way out there. And I said, just wait to see what happens tomorrow, because we're actually doing some stuff in Lisbon. And I said, as a business owner, if you don't take advantage of it, that's what you need to do, because there will be several hundred people traveling down Village Street Sunday. Think about that, though. I mean, there was over 250 cars that were registered for the event. And if anybody drove down there, the road on Cottonwood Road was parked both sides all the way to the end, and a mile on either direction on Pinewoods Road on both sides for cars. I mean, there was hundreds of people that actually came in for spectators. So, and they all had to go down Village Street to get there, right? Pretty much, I would think. So, to me, it's a win-win. So, again, it's not that the community and the town is not working to help boost up Lisbon. I think it's just a process, and we just got to take advantage of all the situations we can get.
I've had people ask why a gazebo on Village Street. I said, well, you look forward to having some live entertainment and also look forward to some farm stands. I know that our Economic Community Development Director has already been looking into things that we can put up there in Lisbon. So we're listening to what the public has to say.
So I guess to wrap that up, I mean, infrastructure is being improved, right? Roads. The idea of some recreational area with the Graziano Square, and the idea of trying to put more events up in that area, just so we do spread the events in town over the whole community. For new financial policies, I know that's kind of something that's in the works. They're looking at it, especially with an assistant town manager. We actually have some more personnel to actually look at those, and those would be ongoing. And
we've been thoroughly looking through that. The assistant town manager's been actually putting a lot of work into that, and also different parts of our policy that needs to have the assistant town manager added to it in different areas, and pointing out the purchasing policy. It's old and outdated, and we'll be bringing that to you probably in August to update further.
I think that would probably be also a good area to use the finance committee more for them to do, overseeing those sort of, purchasing stuff.
Which we had talks about that as well.
Great role for them, because I know they felt struggling with the budget, just kind of like they felt they were duplicating our efforts on the town council side. So
yeah,
that'd be a great role for them to move into.
And part of that was because part of that was, and we already had conversations at the beginning about involving them in that, and the management team, basically our goal will be to do some legwork and then present some to the finance committee so we can get recommendations from them to move forward to the council.
I know they're interested in that sort of thing.
Excellent.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
And then available town services for promotional materials and public awareness. I think if you watch social media, that has actually taken a big uptick. I was thrilled to go to when I checked out the gazebo to see there was actually material in our what's the proper word for that? Display case, yep. So it actually talked about the Moxie weekend and had some stuff out there. It's just anything that we do in our community to help promote ourselves, right? And I think that's only going to grow as we go through. Identify the town's needs for new services. Again, I mean, do you want to touch base on that, Ryan? Because I know there's a lot of work that was done through that area. I mean, I'm not even know where you start and where you stop on that, but.
Well, we're working towards updating as far as the website. You already talked about that, but this
new services.
Yeah, meeting between town manager, finance director, and department heads to see what each department in town needs to continue offering. This included a new school resource officer that the council added, a new firefighter. So now we'll have 2 full-time firefighters to be able to respond during the day to assist. A new assistant parks and recreation director, a new public works driver operator, and lastly, removing 2 part-time employees and adding a full-time assistant library director to the library. So we involved all the department heads. These weren't decisions that were just made from the top. Everybody was involved, the finance director as well.
Again, that's going back to filling the holes of where we've had of people doing double duty and needing to take over other people's positions. This next one is something that I think was brought to a council that's no longer here, but I think it's still a valid and very concerning to all of us. Add a senior tax break to freeze the taxes from going up at a certain age. Been hearing that more in the news of other communities and even as a state. So
there's a state law now.
Yes, there is.
State legislature beat to the punch. I believe it goes to effect August 8th, so we'll be keeping an eye on how that's going to be administered.
There's a lot of complaints about it because it doesn't. It's restricted.
Our finance director actually just attended a training, so
awesome.
She is well aware.
Yeah, so LD 290 was very heavily discussed at the main GFOA conference that I attended, and we've heard from neighboring communities that they've been seeing it pop up, and I think the number one concern from all of the financial officers in the communities was just that question of the application process. There's a lot of information that hasn't been disseminated from the state level to the local governance level, and so we're still working on that.
So this is something that's not actually optional. This is actually a state law where the communities have to adopt it, and basically probably giving little guidance on how to do so.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Clearly they were watching our council meetings back in February.
They had to see what's going on. But if nothing else, I mean, it's a discussion that actually is going to help people. I mean, as time goes on, right?
It's going to be, yeah, it will be good.
Develop financial documents, charts, show where tax dollars go. And I think even through this budget season, we actually seen some of that going through, and the packets, even some of the information we get for the meetings actually has some of that neat pie charts and information. So we thank you for that. Develop procedures for applying for a climate study. Develop job descriptions for salary ranges, and that was pretty much completed. The climate study, I mean, that's one of those ongoing issues that pretty much Don was hoping that we incorporate into everything that we do, you know, whether it's a new public safety building, whether or not it's solar powered. I mean, all those initiatives.
That was my point. Whenever we pass something in structure or whatever, that be considered.
I think it's something that I think the message was heard, and I think that actually is going to be put in place. So, develop more forward-looking project programs. Again, I think the idea of having a planner come on that's actually going to work with the planning board and the community, because I think the town has some really neat projects coming up, as they always have. So, I mean, I think there's endless opportunities there. So, revitalize downtown business communications with the town, and I know Ross is working pretty heavily on that, trying to reduce some of the communications and the business breakfasts and trying to get the businesses actually. It's nice to be proactive, not reactive, you know, to issues coming up. So I think that's awesome.
If I just touch base on that real quick,
Sure.
He's added a few pretty good tools on his website as far as the jobs in Lisbon, which I thought was pretty neat, because people can go right on there and actually see the jobs in Lisbon. And not only that, he's also added, you know, properties available in Lisbon. So if someone wants to come to Lisbon, he's got it right on his site for people to see what's available. So I thought that was a really good thought, Ross.
On that, what about the, you know, like in Lisbon and businesses that are on like 196? How do they get involved in getting the help that Main Street gets?
Yep.
I actually, on day one, I started reaching out to every business in
Okay.
town. I'm at about 85 businesses right now, and I have more to go. But I've got everybody on a mailing list, so when my emails go out every week, everybody's getting hit. They've got the same opportunities to be part of our weekend promotion. We try to promote any business that's doing any specials over the weekend.
Yeah.
We put out a Friday flyer on social media that helps all those businesses over the weekend.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
it's not just, I mean, downtown's been a focus for the
Yeah.
construction, but it's townwide.
Yeah, I'm only bringing that up because when we talk here as a council meeting, we mention Main Street a lot, right? So you do have viewers, right? And they're like, what about, you know,
Village
the
Street, right?
196 Village Street?
Yep.
So I just,
This is everybody. He's even got Dingley Press on there for jobs.
well,
And
thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that
Very
up.
cool.
Appreciate it.
Then the next one is kind of goes back to a discussion we had earlier, is really look at zoning for adding housing units. Again, I think the planner coming on board that's going to be a general discussion on, you know, we know we're going to have growth, where's it going to be, and how we going to actually.
And what do we want to invest in terms of, you know, if we have a
Absolutely.
good area to build, do you want to, you know, invest in water and sewer lines out there? Because that's the kind of thing you need for that infrastructure to build, you know, a lot of houses.
And that kind of goes right with the idea of, you know, those next items that were on the list, and part of just some of the new expansions we see in business in town is going to be huge. So the idea of how we smartly manage that, right, and how we come about, and, you know, some of the expansions and some of the additions won't need additions in school, but if we do a 300 unit housing project, that's where we got to have that smart growth.
You get into smart growth, but you got to be careful not to be overwhelmed. I think Mr. Cool had a comment if you want to recognize him.
Absolutely. Sir, would you like to come on up and?
So, one of the points I wanted to make earlier about the planner that may tie into what you're speaking of now is the recently passed state constitutional amendments that towns must comply with, can't say no to, basically. One is for accessory dwelling units, granny apartments euphemistically, and the other one is the constitutional right to food, which is popping up in my neighborhood where people are allowed to have chickens, yet where the chickens run into decent, safe, and sanitary requirements and then noise requirements. Just an issue on my street because one of my neighbors has ducks. So, but it's an issue that we're going to have to deal with because some of these constitutional amendments may run directly into the town's own statutes. And
Which they do already.
there's a built-in conflict with a couple of those.
Yeah, because right now we actually have a square footage minimal for the idea of actually doing anything non-domestic animal, whatever you can put that to, and that would actually go against that.
Right.
that opportunity. So, again, good to know, and again, I guess more work for a planner to figure out how we actually...
Planner, too, and it's going to have legal ramifications, I would assume, that we would need to talk to the attorneys about how to deal with it without running astray of the state constitution.
Yep. Perfect, thank you very much. And one of the reasons we actually kind of bring these up tonight, to get halfway through, and I just wanted to make sure the council's aware that we are moving forward to some of the goals. And in the past, I mean, as council, we were responsible for actually setting goals and making sure that our management actually, fulfilled the goals that we actually put forward. And we're supposed to do it every 6 months, and not that that's written into our contract now, but I think it's actually a good time to look at it. And is there anything else that council has that they would like to add to this moving forward? Because we'll be looking at this towards the end of this.
I was going to reserve this for later, but I've had people comment to me that there are some really nice areas in town, and there are some really neglected areas, particularly buildings and some residential, that are clearly, if lived in, I don't know how, abandoned, and not only abandoned but not cleaned up. And I think somehow we need to address it without telling people how high their grass can be. I do have some input regarding businesses, but not residential, and I think that's an area we should explore, because in Moxie, we like to put our best foot forward, and in some cases, I hope they don't go down some of the roads, So just being honest about it, I think we need to incorporate that in there somehow.
Understandable, and we'll see how we can actually do that.
Yeah, some of that is just to get code enforcement to enforce existing ordinances.
Well, in some cases, there aren't ordinances.
Right, there are. There may be new places, but I know there's places where we have ordinances that aren't being enforced.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I didn't want to spend all night on that, but it is important that the council has goals and we're trying to move forward, and I think the management team is actually helping us do that. So, okay, next item, please.
Next item is the announcement of nomination papers for the November 8, 2022 annual municipal election, available beginning Monday, August 1st, 2022. So those interested can pick up nomination papers here at the town office, at the clerk's office. We have this election season, we have 3 school committee seats for 3-year terms, 1 water commission seat for a 3-year term. The town council has 3 seats for 3-year terms and 1 seat for a 2-year term, because Councillor Kane's seat, due to Councillor Miller's departure, an appointee to the council can only serve until the next election period per our town charter. Once people pick up those nomination papers, they are all due September 9th, 2022 at 4:00 p.m. We also have committee openings for Assessment Review Board, Board of Appeals, the Cemetery Committee. We do have Conservation Committee, Ethics Panel, and Finance Committee openings. So a lot of that is just due to the 3-year terms. Some people may elect to stay on those boards or committees, but we always accept new applications, and they're available online or at the clerk's office. Just click the forms button.
And you can actually see online what openings that there are for committees?
We just put them online. We're getting ready to put them on Facebook, and they'll be on the electric sign. It's hard to read them on the electric sign, but hopefully it reminds people to take a look at the website or Facebook, and then, or maybe to stop into the town office.
Thank you very much. All right, next item, please.
Next, we have a consolidated communications update presentation, but I think that was removed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Not a problem. And next item, please.
Next item is Warumbo discussion.
All right. This item was actually brought to the council to come back. It was actually tabled quite some time ago and held kind of in limbo while we actually tried getting staff in place. We've actually got some of the staff, but we haven't got all the staff. But we did promise we'd bring it back up, and Councilor Fellows actually made sure that it would be on the agenda so we could have the discussion to figure out where we are and where we're going with it. So I guess that's the discussion we have this evening. I think a lot of things have actually taken place since we've actually looked at some of the renderings and some of the communications last. One of the big ones was explained tonight with the Blues Festival, showing the idea how much the community can benefit from the idea of actually having this site as a site to bring business in the town and revenue and being a financial engine for some of the businesses downtown, and not just downtown, but all the way across town, seeing what happened on Village Street. That to me is huge. And a smart business. I mean, that's for her putting a sign out there or anything. That's just creative business people making it happen. So I'd like to have some discussion for council, and then we can see where we go with it from there.
Back when we, Mr. Chair, back when we abandoned this for a temporary period of time, we decided to bring it up again when we had an economic development person in place. Now that we do that, our original plan was to go to the public and with a flyer and that sort of thing, and a survey on what they chose to do or wanted to do. And we had four options, one of which was a park alone, and the other three were some variation of either a residential or commercial and that sort of thing. So my question when I brought it up is, where do we want to go from here? And Councillor Lunt had mentioned, we were almost past it, and then Councillor Lunt had a large objection to the park explanation, didn't think it did justice to it. I think if I've spoken to you and some others, there may be some alternatives to that might make it more appealing. So I would like to know, where do we want to go? We did put a lot of time and effort, the LDC did, into getting these things developed, and so I don't know where the council feels, whether we want to go out to the public or not. I've talked about it so much, I'm tired of talking about it. But,
just need something to happen, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot's happened since, not to take away from anything that the Lisbon Development Committee has done, because I think part of that, since it's starting as much as Councilor Fellows, I think there's a lot of things that have changed that have opened our eyes up a little bit. I think Mark's concerned about the idea of some of the projection of what a park could bring in had been proven to be a little less accurate than, with the Blues Festival, the idea of how it could be a financial.
No, I mean, I was very supportive of the idea that it could be. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally on board. I think a lot of other towns have shown what they can do with a waterfront park. Certainly, I think it can be a driver for community and economic growth.
Yep. My recommendation, since we actually kind of gave the green light to the Blues Festival tonight for next year,
looks like they did next year.
is to actually to the idea of actually seeing what could actually happen with that space as far as it being developed. And I hate to use the word park, because I think it's much more than a park. I think it's actually shown that it can be just a viable attraction to the community. I think there's some information that's come out since then showing, maybe some more limitations on the property from what originally we're using for designing. I'll hand these out, and again, some of you have actually seen these a little bit, and hand these down there.
I've seen this, and the new renderings that we did, the latest renderings, I'm not sure, but I don't think they conflict like this does, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where, again, this is just a visual, and the lines are lined up to the point where initially when we were looking at the property, the thought was of what the acreage was and what was usable space. And you can actually see with the lines drawn basically where the fence is now. And beyond that fence is wet, right? It's actually at water table level. And, just speaking in the last few weeks about the idea of, with the town manager, of, what it would take to actually fill that area in. There were some concerns about if we would even be able to. So I think the workable space that we actually have to do, if you can compare it down to some of the renderings on the bottom, again, it may not be pinpoint accurate, but yet it does show a percentage, regardless if you were to move that line 10 feet one way or the other, that, there is probably, when we were considering initially, 3 acres of park space or green space, that's pretty much most of that lot. So, you know, I mean, I think we'd even have to go back and look at some of the renderings that we actually had for the other three options if we were considering putting them out. And again, not saying this is a definite, oh my God, but it's one of those things that we've known, and the idea of what actually is usable space and what's not, and what can be considered buildable, and, you know, is it viable? So, my thought, you know, talking, again, I'm probably a little bit slighted on this because I've been working on this lot for the last probably 15 years to actually be part of the community and be a viable part of the community. With most of these discussions, one of the biggest concerns was that this actually doesn't become a place for the community to actually use taxpayers' dollars to actually maintain and keep up. And you know, the thought of the downtown businesses, very much like they put together and did the Blues Festival. There's actually been a talk over the years, and I know Positive Change had a lot of those discussions of doing what other communities do, where you actually have a nonprofit organization actually run a facility like this under the umbrella of the town. So you're not actually using town resources to actually set up programs. And I'm talking every level, even the idea of maintaining it, mowing it, and going it on. To me, if this lot is actually going to benefit the community, but mainly benefit the businesses to drawing people in, to me it's not unreasonable to think that the businesses could actually help promote this and actually run it and actually not make it a burden upon the town community for upkeep. And
I was going to add that same comment. I think the businesses throughout can benefit with this real estate, and I think, you know, how they benefit from the Blues, they can also benefit from other types of functions that brings people in. And I think if we, you know, get them all involved and help create events, whether it's music or, you know, farms, you know, farmer market stands, that brings people here and into their businesses. I think there's other opportunities also there. So I think it has changed. There is, you know, to your point, what's buildable, what's not buildable. You know, there's some businesses that even say, you know, a small business down there doesn't hurt neither, right? So, but I think the Blues Festival really showed some fruit that can be had, and if we put our heads collectively together and we have, you know, 8 a year, you know, you could actually have 8 a year. You know, there's three or four months of the year that you can't due to climate weather, but if you really put something like that together, I think the businesses will thrive. And that's ultimately is what we want, right? We want the businesses that we have today, we want them to stay and grow. If you know, and I think this has that opportunity down there.
I think the Blues Fest. Do you want to recognize Ross first, or do you want to?
Yes, Ross. Sorry.
I wanted to point out that at one of our Main Street virtual meetings in the last couple of weeks, I was introduced to the director of a group called Friends of Congress Square Park in Portland. It's the exact same model you're talking about. Portland owns the park, but they have a nonprofit group with an executive director, coordinates all the events, all the fundraising for the park, all of that stuff. I did reach out to him just saying, hey, look, we have this similar type of property, and he'd love to come up and talk to us about it. So there's definitely a model nearby that we can tap into and learn from. The one thing I will tell you from the Blues Festival, it got dark, it got dangerous. So we do need, if we're going to use this, we need power, we need lights down there to make it more functional. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the Blues Festival showed us that, like, we can be like the go-to site for festivals. I mean, it can be more than a park, and it can be a venue. And if there was, you know, if there was some improvements, some lighting, maybe a stage that, you know, a festival paid a fee for using that stage, but the organization that ran the park, you know, maintained it. You know, like I was saying, monthly, maybe 8 months a year, but even a winter. I mean, I come from Western New York. We had a Winterfest every year. We trucked in snow and had a sledding hill. You know, so and Ross and I have already bounced around some ideas for some other festivals that could happen there. And I think if we had a monthly festival there, and we're halfway between Augusta and Portland, we're you know, close to LA, that we're very central. And if people are planning festivals, we become the place they think of. Like, I'm going to go to Lisbon and hold my festival there.
I'm not opposed to doing something that I'm not all stuck on. Let's build houses or whatever we do. My point was, let's find out what the public wants.
I agree.
And at the same time, we want to be giving them accurate information. There were different renderings. I sent them to Ross today, and I sent them to Ryan today. And I don't know that you had them other than that. Yeah, they were the latest renderings that pared things down and had different structures other than the chicken barns on there.
Yeah, and that was just more of a
And they were
layout.
they were designed to get away from bothering the railroad tavern or those other things. So I think at least we owe ourselves looking at those renderings to see what they're talking about, and then maybe the idea with the park is the natural decision. I don't know, but I think we should not stop it and just say we're gonna just create a park. I think we should consider everything, maybe some modification. And I like the idea of if that venue is going to be self-sustaining, that we develop some sort of nonprofit corporation or something that gets responsible for it. And obviously it has to grow over a number of years. But so I just want to make sure that we cover all the bases. There were a lot of members of the LDC that said very solidly, we need residential housing down there, and we need this, and businesses opportunities based on the survey that was done that we spent some money for. So I think we should do it justice.
Yes, sir.
I knew that was coming.
Well, the thing that triggered it for me was when Christy mentioned Destination Point. And I'll just relate to you my experience from Naples. As the festival grew in Naples, for those of you who don't know, the thing that makes the Blues Festival, the Maine Blues Festival, unique, probably the only one of its kind in the nation, is that it is restricted entirely, exclusively to Maine artists, no big name imports, despite the fact that they bang on our door all the time. And this has been going on for quite a while. And what happened over time, and this goes to your idea of a destination point, is we were getting national acts calling us up saying, okay, we know we can't play in your festival, we get it, we get what you're doing, and we support that, but aren't there some venues in Naples where we could play? And I've long said, and Mike and Sandy will bear me out on this one, I've long felt that there is no reason in the world why Lisbon cannot be a music destination point. There's every reason for us to look at that. It's tailor-made. So, something to think
about. Once again, I defer back to the people who voted me into this chair where I'm sitting. And I'm all for the businesses. I'm all for making this business friendly for all the businesses in town. But a lot of the people that I've talked to, that have talked to me, said, what about taxes? How's it going to help me with my taxes? And I think that looking at all of the development scenarios that are presented with storefronts and buildings and housing and all the rest, I don't think that by the town giving up sort of ownership of that area to real estate people or whatever it might be, I'm assuming probably all real estate people, we're probably not going to get that influx that they're looking for that's going to make a difference. And I think what does make a difference is what I've seen in Moxie and the Blues Festival. I think that kind of difference is worthy and it's worthwhile. And I think it's time to put the Warumbo question to bed. And I think it's a night where we can do that. I think we should vote. I would support having that as an open venue. I don't think that any of the other scenarios are going to be worthwhile. I think once we do that, we lose control of it, and they can do what they want. So I think my constituents would be happy with that decision. And they weren't adamant about it. I mean, they're always looking for ways to reduce their taxes. And again, I want the businesses to thrive. But the people that live out on Ferry Road or King Road or wherever, I mean, that's great for the businesses, but what about my tax bill? So I'm cognizant of that. I'm aware of it. I'm sensitive to it. I pay them too. So, but I think in the long run, in the long term, I think this is the best track for the town for that property. I think we could sell it off, make some money, drop some taxes for a little bit. In a year, you probably won't even know it. 2 years, you won't even know it. 3 years, you won't even know it. And then we lose control of it. And what happens to it? It's going to be houses and cars and apartments and maybe some stores that maybe they make it, maybe they don't. It just doesn't seem viable to me. And I think the people of the town will understand that once we do this, settle it, and start working on really good, effective use of that property for the town as a whole, for the businesses as a whole, I think ultimately it's going to pay off. So I'm in favor of ending this debate tonight, voting on it tonight, and moving forward.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I second it.
There's so many possible places for housing or other businesses. There are so many lots and vacant buildings. We only have one riverfront, and that's a beautiful asset, and just blocking it seems like a shameful use of
I
it.
agree, and in my conversation with a lot of people, we talked about that. We said there's a lot of places where we can develop that, then it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be there. And the thing is, once we have that, I mean, that's been blocked since the Civil War, pretty much, right? Yeah. Right, Mark?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You were there. Or your dad was there, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and once now that we have that venue and we can do something with that, I think the people will understand it, and I think they'll support it. I don't think they're going to be banging their fist saying no. I think it's going to be a good thing.
Councilor
Well,
Moore.
they become involved, right? The problem is it's stagnant, right? That we can't allow this, right? We just had an awesome event. That's a true statement. I think a lot of people benefit from it. I have the same issue. I have people come to me, say the same thing to me, but on the other hand, they'd say, wow, what a fantastic day that was. The problem is, are you guys just going to let it sit there and wait till next year and have one more, right? So that's what we can't do, right? We have a prime piece of real estate that we collectively, as a community, can get our heads collectively together and make this place so it does have them type of events where it draws people, right? Not just people that live here, people that don't live here. That's up to us. We can let it sit there and turn it into a sand pit, or we can let it become something very valuable for everybody, businesses and everybody else. Because the residents, they enjoyed going down there. They had a great time. It was trouble-free. People got along, right? It was good. They got to jump around, and that's only one event, right? So if you can come up with more, they mentioned the Boston Farmers Market, right? Go down to Faneuil Hall, right? I mean, there's so many vendors down there that would like to spread their wings down there, right? And I'm sure if we got a hold of them down there, I guarantee you we can get some of them to come to Lisbon and set up in that area, which will draw a lot of people. I'm sure anyone go down to Boston just massive amount of people, right? Yeah, it's not the same game. There's a lot more businesses, but a lot of people are going to them farmers markets, right? And it draws a lot of people.
I'm not opposed to development of this nature in that area. My opposition has been that I don't think we've done the people that did the work justice. And that's why I don't feel that we should pass something tonight without at least looking at the renderings and seeing how we would incorporate what this venue might be. What's it going to look like? We have to have a vision, and we have to set a time limit for it to come to fruition, to make it free for us, make it not cost the taxpayers money. So for that reason, I won't vote for this motion.
Understandable.
If I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but Councilor Moore, I just need you to clarify your motion.
I would make a motion to not develop the Warumbo site and utilize the space for the town's use as it sees fit.
And I second it.
All right, Councilor Smith already seconded. I just needed to clarify for the record because there was a lot of chatter. So.
I'd also like to add that we have money in the TIF fund, the downtown TIF fund, that could be used for development on this site for putting in power and for like building a bandstand would be great, putting in lights down there. That way you don't have to hit the taxpayers at all. It's right there in the fund, and that's what it's for.
And the motion is to not develop the site?
Not develop,
Well,
or
not
not
develop.
engage with real estate to put it
I
out there.
guess there'd probably be more, need to be more definition. Actually, when I was listening to Council Moore the first time, it was not develop it, but to use
Develop
it
it
as
as a park.
as a venue.
As a venue.
Park venue.
Better word than
Public
park.
venue.
Yes, venue.
Yeah, venue. Yeah, I think the park is kind of a one of
It's
those things that people-
misleading, right? Because I think we should call it a venue and actively make sure that's what it becomes.
Right. We don't have to be just.
I mean, if we fail, then we sell it. We do
Absolutely.
whatever, right?
It's we're not gonna
It's
hurt
not
it.
that we can't do anything if we fail. And if we fail, that's on us.
Right. If in 2 years nobody's using it, then
Right,
we'll
get
go
rid
back
of
to redevelop it, and that's our choice. But if you develop it for housing, you can never go back the other way.
Right. Yeah, can't tear it down.
Wyoming, aren't you glad to come tonight? You can actually come to the podium multiple
Trying to
times.
go to bed early, but I guess not. So, in my other life, I worked for the State Housing Authority. And from my unprofessional, educated, amateur view of that place, the maximum you're going to build in there is 24 units, and it's probably going to be elderly. And it would have a negligible effect on the tax base or the mill rate here in town. And it would probably be fueled through tax credits, because that's the only viable source for multifamily development now. And 15 years, tax credits expire, and the ownership becomes nonprofit, and nonprofits ask for an exemption to the real estate taxes. Just keep that in mind.
That's an issue.
Thank you. Good info.
Also, as someone who is not a native to Lisbon, I saw where I grew up in Pennsylvania, all the farms are gone. All the woods I trespassed through as a kid are gone, and it's a solid wall of concrete and blacktop. There is no heart to the town anymore. This gives Lisbon a chance to create a heart for itself. If any of you are familiar with Water Street in Augusta, there's I think they're called the Museum in the Street, but it's placards about and photos of what Augusta was when there were department stores and what have you in that strip. And it gives Lisbon a chance to create its own history in a place in the center of Lisbon. Also, from a planning board point of view, whatever you do, we should think of some way legally that Lisbon maintains sovereignty over the space. Because deed restrictions can tell a developer what he can't do, but it doesn't tell them what they're allowed to do on the space. So you have a developer there who puts up an apartment building but says, I don't want the town to use it. A deed restriction will not necessarily address that. So whichever way this goes, please keep those variables in mind.
Thank you. And, I mean, I just want to add one more thing. I mean, this discussion's been around council for a while. I mean, it's been public, it's non-public, and I was actually educated one night from the council where I actually said, let's put this on the next ballot. I mean, let's bring it to election so all the taxpayers can go vote on it. I was informed that night, I was voted down, that it's the council's responsibility to make this decision because we're elected by the citizens, and it's going to be a council decision. So I feel no remorse to actually having this be a council decision because that's what it was told to me.
True.
And that's just how it's just the way it is, right?
It's fact, right?
Yeah.
It's fact, so.
All right, any more discussion? Are we good to vote?
I'm going to read what I have written down that includes Harry's notes and the discussion that you've had to make sure that we're voting on exactly what you want to vote on. I see I have here his motion is to vote to halt the previous direction of research and development for Warumbo and pursue a venue option. Does that sound more like what you are looking for? I've just put together what everybody was talking about.
Yes.
I thought you said that.
That's exactly what you said. Okay. That's what I thought.
I just said it in a little more detail, but that's okay.
All right.
Is everybody clear on the motion?
Everybody was
That's
confused except me, so.
Right, just to keep this moving forward. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Order pass 6-1.
Now, I have a question.
Shoot.
Mr. Chairman. Is the Lisbon Development Committee, has that been an ongoing
Committee?
for like ever? It wasn't developed just for Rumbo, right?
No, the history of
Has there been a committee developed just for Rumbo?
To deal with CBGs.
Yeah, we actually as a community spent quite a bit of planners' money to develop a 196 master plan that actually was basically put in place to make our 196 a better looking environment and to control what's built and what's not built and what it looks like. And once we went through the process and actually had that voted in and actually being a standard in our community, the Lisbon Development Committee was actually put in place to help promote that and actually bring it forward. So that group was put forward to actually promote a project that was done by the town.
Okay. So has there ever been a committee
strictly for the Rumble?
Strictly for the Rumbo development site?
I think there should be now for this.
And I'm wondering now whether or not that should be something that we would consider maybe further on in our council life.
I would actually kind of refer back to get some information from Ross what other
I think
communities
with Ross and maybe the planning board and the new planner.
Or maybe the development committee.
Yeah, I think.
Anyone wants to get involved, absolutely.
I think it's one of those things where I don't think we want to reinvent the wheel. I think if other communities have actually worked this out for a number of years, I think we ought to take their
what
information.
Bill was talking about, and both Ross was talking about.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Okay.
But if we need to put a committee together to move this forward, then that's fine.
Absolutely, and I guess I'd leave it up to Ross and the management team to actually figure out what that would look like and bring it forward to the council.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Next item is appointments. Order 2022-167 to appoint Associate Member Chris Rugalis to full member on the Lisbon Development Committee, and to appoint new Associate Member Natalie Thompson of Pine Woods Road.
Both good people. An entertain
Chris has
motion.
been on it for a while. I think. Is this a voice vote?
No.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anybody in the community willing to vote? I mean, to take the time to serve, we definitely want them aboard, so.
Order passed 7-0. Next item is council communications.
Anybody have anything specific that hasn't been already mentioned?
The Moxie Festival went really, really good, but I did have some other feedback. They thought McGee did a really good job clearing Main Street, but they felt maybe we should have also got some things down in Main Street also, right? There was time, people felt there was time to take, not have so much in one area, kind of spread the wings a little bit and have some, because a lot of the residents, they kind of miss being down Main Street because that's where it's always been. So they were I heard from more residents than I did businesses, and they were like, we kind of missed Main Street. You guys got the road all cleared, you had two-way traffic, but you didn't do anything with it. And again, they weren't being negative or disappointing. They just wanted their voice heard, that they felt that we had enough time to maybe adjust a little bit and get some venues downtown Main Street, seeing that it was open.
The unknowns are the biggest biggest factors, but I mean, I've been in, I think, either one or two meetings that actually broke off into Moxie meetings, it seems, since people actually just talking about it, because it is an overwhelming, everybody's pretty excited about it, and there's been a lot of discussion. I think next year, I believe there's going to be a Moxie wrap-up type, meeting that actually everything's going to come together, and hopefully everybody can participate and we can add. And I think it's only going to grow, right? I think if we have room to expand, I think the MTM went well, but the idea of working with Main Street and the Rumbo site, I think we have lots of options. So
I mean, they weren't, again, they weren't being negative. They thought it went very, very, very well, right? These are people that have been going for 20 years or so, and they're used to going to Main Street, right? So, you got, people almost my age that are saying, hey, how come we didn't have anything down Main Street,
And with that, with that same mention is, a lot of people question whether it could happen at Beaver Park, and that's probably one of the best car shows we've had. So Not even limited to Main Street, Village Street. I mean, Graziano Park. I mean, I think we can actually spread venues all over the community, and actually people will go.
Yeah,
So
make
it's
it
just a
big,
matter
yeah.
of
Put it,
smart
make it
planning.
bigger, have it everywhere, kind of
Smart
thing.
planning, right? Any other council communication?
I just wanted to say I had a great time doing Moxie. At the last minute, I decided to volunteer, and I called and was part of the setting people up to go in the parade, running a little thing around, and it was kind of fun because I met some clowns I didn't know. They climbed all over the device and wanted me to take them, then they wanted to borrow it, so, it was kind of fun. But, no, it was good. And then the Moxie recipe contest was another thing that was interesting, and we had some pretty high profile there. The governor came, and I think she had a good time, too.
Very cool stuff.
Good day.
Yep, absolutely.
And Ross, where's she from?
Can't believe you didn't know that.
Any council communications? I just want to thank, go back and thank the management team and the Public Works and the fire department, and I know I missed a bunch of them. Just the town actually really came together, and it showed. We had a really safe parade. We had a safe event. Even the night of the fireworks, someone commented to me, "Wow, I can't walk without actually seeing an officer." And that was strictly by design. I mean, I think we actually, there was a lot of planning that went in, not that I did, but the police and the department as a whole, as far as Chief, do you want to add to that? And don't actually comment on the idea that you actually won the event with the. But,
Don't worry, I don't have
I'll comment
a
on
water
something
hose.
else.
You don't have to be scared, Chief.
It's hard to retaliate when the person you want to retaliate against is in full uniform, is on duty. So it would have been a bucket of water instead of a. Anyway, there is a lot of planning involved, and I appreciate the comments from the citizens. But looking at what the rec department did to set up, when that road was, when they said they could reopen the road, there wasn't enough time for that planning committee to do anything. But what I want to do right here is, I know that the police chief doesn't like to, blow his own horn, but the amount of planning that the police department did above and beyond what you normally see in previous years, I'm not going to go into all the details because I'm sure he wants to keep some of that, top secret. But the planning that he did went above and beyond what we've seen in previous years, and the security level at this event this year was higher than we've seen in any other event. And I really want to commend the Lisbon Police Department and Chief McGee for all the planning he did during this event.
That's telling people it's probably the safest place in the state to be that day is actually on, Lisbon, Maine, right?
It was, and I did have some people in the community express concerns about Main Street, but planning starts long in advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's liability as far as the parade route as well, having to stay in the same location. But we did hear those concerns long before the parade and everything happened, and I just reassured them that last 2 years we didn't have a parade and we didn't have these festivals. So let's enjoy ourselves. Let's go support the local businesses, which there was. There was a line out the Sausage Kitchen, and I know that there's some of the restaurants. But overall, it's a success when you look back, and your kids are still talking about it several days later. So
that's very cool.
I couldn't get me all fit.
Any other comments before we move on? Seeing none. Next item, please.
The next item is audience participation and response for new items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address items or issues that are not on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record.
Anybody like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? Unfortunately, these late nights tend to actually, limit the audience. But
we skip that.
Seeing no movement. Next item, please.
Next item is executive session. Order 2022-168 per MRSA Section 4056A Personnel Matters.
And we will not be coming out with any vote that I know of, so we'll be wrapping up. Thank you, folks.
We need a motion.
Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
See ya.
Thank you.
Hey,
Safe
Glenn,
travels.
thank
Bill. Wait a minute.
Someone to the principal's office.
Well, I'm trying to catch you before you escape.
Actually, we can stay right here. Just gonna get something out of my office.